Top posts presents the best of r/Askreddit. English teachers. What topic on a write about anything essay made you lose hope in humanity? I teach literature at a college and mostly deal with freshmen and sophomores. For our free writing unit, one of the assignments asked the students to write any original story based on your favorite fictional genre. So, one of my students wanted to do horror. I said great. That's also a favorite of mine. Go nuts. Eventually, the assignments are turned in and I'm grading them at home. I get to the kid with the horror story and it's about a serial killer who stalks women. Okay, whatever. Nothing I haven't seen before. But then the story goes into long, excruciating detail about the next victim this killer plans on stalking, raping, murdering. A petite blonde in her early 30s who teaches English. And it just so happens I'm a petite blonde in her early 30s who, well, yeah. I didn't report it or anything since it was a creative exercise. I didn't grade him unfairly, either. But I seriously couldn't look that kid in the eye ever again. Here's one I can actually answer. I was teaching an IELTS test prep class to high school aged students in China. One of my students is planning on being a nutritionist, and when I gave her a topic about what she would change if she could be the president for a day, she said that she would imprison everyone who was over a certain BMI until they were thin, and if they were repeat offenders they should spend life in prison for wasting public resources and making healthcare more expensive for everyone else. That's incredibly Chinese. We had to write short stories in high school English. My best friend was struggling for inspiration, so me, self-absorbed teenager, told her to write about me when I'm a beautiful successful professional ballerina. She took the idea and ran with it but took a dark turn and had me raped backstage by the director of the ballet company. She showed it to me proudly before class, and when she saw my face as I read it, started backpedaling hard about how it definitely wasn't about me. She just got inspired. Black Swan? Yeah, but like 5 years before it came out. Spooky. Perfect Blue then. Not a teacher. In high school we got told to write a short horror story. Someone googled short horror story, printed it out and handed it in. He literally just took a screenshot and printed it so you could see the URL and what he was watching on YouTube. Spoiler, he didn't pass. I'm impressed he reached the level of print screen. To this day I see posts where people captured the screen with their phones. Now he just needs to learn to use the snipping tool. One of my favorite features of Windows 10. Nice being able to crop your screenshots as you take them. Not an English teacher. Just a mother reading over her 10th grader son's essay 2 weeks ago. He had written something to the effect of, heaps of people have heaps of hobbies, so we had a conversation about using more academic language and employing a wider range of vocabulary. I come back 10 minutes later and he'd used the thesaurus function in Word, so it now read, piles of people have mounds of hobbies. Just, wow. Your kid is hilarious. At first I read it as a 10-year-old. Then I realized it's more like a 15 or 16-year-old. Absolutely hilarious. My girlfriend and her sister have some pretty daft assignments. The GF got asked to write a paper on any aspect of history, so just wrote about her life up until that point. Her sister got asked to do a presentation on evolution and did it on the 2001 film. I got that one myself in 6th grade and did an expanded chronology of every dog my family had owned. I was extra proud of myself because I got to start with a dog named Jack, owned by my great-great-grandfather, who was notable for urinating on the bar of a local saloon and indirectly causing the arrest of 3 men for public disturbance. In high school, we had a history essay to write about JFK and one of my classmates wrote the entire essay by naming him Jean-Francois Kennedy. Yes, it was in France. My teacher was so astonished by it, he asked her why she didn't wrote the abbreviation JFK instead of guessing the name, and she answered that she actually thought his name was Jean-Francois Kennedy. Who doesn't know his real name is John Fortnite Kennedy? Killed by Lenin Hockey Oswald, too. So sad and avenged by his brother John Fortnite Wick. Well, it wasn't the topic itself, but a student literally cited The Onion as one of his main sources. That was enough to make me lose hope. Edit, for clarification, since every other comment is asking this. No, they did not cite it as a joke. They literally used the Onion to support their thesis claim and failed the assignment because it destroyed the entire paper's credibility and argument. They failed the assignment with that being one of the major reasons and had to rewrite it. You can't feel too bad either because along with other things it proved right off the bat that person did it last minute, put no effort in, and didn't even read the source or was that unknowledgeable about the subject to actually believe it. I've had classmates submit essays copied straight up from Wikipedia including the blue hyperlinks and all. I had a classmate in high school who once did a presentation where he just read his text off a piece of paper. The presentation included the phrase, "As a historian, I." Teacher here. Once had a female student submit an assessment that included the phrase "now," as a male journalist, didn't bother reading the rest. Not an essay but we were doing impromptu speeches and one guy recited the Weird Al song Albuquerque word for word until the teacher finally told him to stop after 10 minutes. Okay, now, I am genuinely curious. Did he recite it word for word just as it's sung by Weird Al or did he just talk like a normal person while reciting it? Not a teacher either but I remember I had to read over a classmate's essay and he wrote about a bunch of Disney princesses going to jail on Alcatraz. Man, the competition for the prisoner with a bunch of bird friends would be fierce. I'm imagining a bunch of Disney princesses all lined up in cells. Then at the end is Mickey Rourke and Iron Man 2 going "I've and my bird." That would make a great movie. Let's get GoFundMe started. 4th grade. I was teaching the kids how to write short stories. Kid wrote a story about going to a new school for the first day and being abused by teachers. It was awful. Turns out this kid was being abused by his dad and thought it was normal behavior for adults to act that way. Absolutely heartbreaking. What happened next? I hope the kid's okay. Please tell me you reported it. Absolutely, I did. I believe his dad was removed from the house for a period of time. This guy wrote me a paper about how swamp base ruined his marriage, describing it initially as an unexpected rash. He wrote at length about how this rash caused his wife to stop having sex with him and refuse him any intimacy. After some time, he and his wife got a divorce, and he promptly blames the rash for it. It isn't much later in the paper, at this point a good 6 pages long, that he details his struggles with proper hygiene due to cheap toilet paper causing this rash. So, because this guy couldn't wipe his base properly, he lost his wife, his kids, and his sanity, to the point where he decided to come tell me about it. My second place is probably the guy who wrote about how he got AIDS edit. Jeez. My top rated comment is now about how one guy failed to wipe his base to a clinical degree. My second highest is about how I passed on X to go to the zoo. Reddit really is a roller coaster. It wasn't write about anything, it was more like create a story. My student 9 years old female wrote about 2 best friends. They were at the mall when one of them got kidnapped by a villain, who put her in a suitcase and took her to London. Everyone searched for her and she was found dead. The villain had murdered her. The police arrested and imprisoned him for 10 years and then killed him. The girl's best friend was really sad and killed herself and then they lived happily ever after. She is 9. And wrote about kidnap, murder, police violence and suicide and romanticized suicide. Bruh. Until last year, my students 7th grade, ages 12-13 had to do a science fair project. They had to create a topic with a testable theory: does brand X detergent get more stains out than brand Y? This was accompanied with a research report of the topic. I would give the students a sample report I created. Every year, I would tell them not to copy from their sources, and I would easily find out who did. Every year, some literally copy word for word from, of the easiest of sources, Wikipedia. Cue mad parents. Cue exact copies of the report, side by side with the highlighted portions of the report. Parents mad at you or the kids? Sounds like the parents were mad at the teacher, so they printed out the wiki article and highlighted the parts that were exact copies to show the parents the side by side, I think. Not a teacher, but a few months ago I did this biology thing in which we could choose between several topics and do research on them. I chose fish's respiratory systems. From there I could choose exactly what to do, and I decided that the title would be, would the fish smoke through their gills or through their mouths? A deep analysis of the gill respiratory system. It was a 4-page work and the professor liked it so much that he asked my permission to publish it in the local newspaper. It was hilarious going to the local store and finding it in the first page. I assigned a write about anything poem assignment. They could choose any style of poetry based off of any of our mentor texts. They simply had to incorporate their interests or themselves into the poem style. One of my students, 11F, shared, for the very first time, her experience of being raped by her grandfather. I talked to the student, called the parents, the guidance counselor, child protective services, and the police. The grandfather is in prison now. Duck bad people. I had a college buddy who graduated a couple years back take a writing class, in which they were allowed to write whatever fictional story they desired. For this assignment, he wanted an accredited professor to read erotica. He sat down and wrote 10 pages of prawn, detailing the discovery of X from the perspective of a young, thick, female. He got an A edit. Wow, this is a crazy response. I've definitely never had anything like this on any of my comments before. I'll let my buddy know his story is famous. Thank you to whoever gave me Reddit Silver. Now I just have to figure out what it does. Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing. And have a nice day.